Hi everyone, let's talk political spectrum here. And by that I mean what you feel you are in terms of your political ideology. And we can talk about people, we can talk about political parties, we can talk about issues as it relates to this political spectrum, or what we call the political continuum line. And so that's going to be our next challenge for the next few days, is to try to figure out what it means to be liberal or left wing, or conservative or right wing. Or, like most of us, we'll be somewhere in the middle, at which we call moderate, maybe a little bit to the left or a little bit to the right. So the way that we're going to do this for the next few days is we're going to talk about generalities. There will be exceptions to everything. But overall, as we try to figure out what is a liberal thought or a liberal policy versus what is a conservative thought or conservative policy, or for that matter, political party or politician or whatever we may be talking about. We will discuss this with 5 general categories. Here's our first one. What is the role of government? Generally speaking, people left of center or liberal or left wing think that the government should have a bigger role in society. And what I use a lot is this notion of curing social ills. And by that I mean there's just something wrong in society. The government should step in and play a role in trying to fix whatever that social issue is. And people left of center tend to think that the government should have a bigger role in that. More specifically, if we're worried about what the federal or national level should do in relation to the state, somebody left of center tends to think that there should be a bigger federal role in the government. Comparing that to the conservative side, generally speaking, conservatives want a smaller role in government, and they think in general that it's not necessarily the government's job to come in and correct what I would consider social ills, but maybe the private sector. Maybe we'll have private charities, private corporations, churches come in and help with what we call these social ills, these problems that may happen in society. And adding to that, if we do have a government role, chances are somebody right of center or conservative would think that the state should have a bigger role in whatever policy or whatever issue that is. So that's our first general category. That, again, we're kind of dealing in absolutes here, but realize that we have to kind of talk about stereotypes first, and then we'll be more specific and try to deal with other issues as it relates to this stereotypical category. Here's the second one. What do we do in terms of business versus workers policy? People left of center tend to think that there should be an emphasis on workers or perhaps unions, and people right of center tend to take a look at the society and see if there's an emphasis on business and owners. Third category, how will we deal with rights in society? Generally speaking, people who are left of center or liberal think that the individual's right should be emphasized, whereas people right of center generally think that society's rights should be emphasized. Let me give you one quick example and then we'll move on. Here's one that I think fits really well in this category. If you think about the idea of capital punishment or the death penalty, somebody left of center may think that the death penalty is a violation of somebody's individual right to perhaps have a more appropriate sentence, that the death penalty or capital punishment is a violation of the Eighth Amendment's protection from cruel and unusual punishment. That tends to be a policy thought left of center. Right of center, however, somebody who is conservative may think that the death penalty is good because it benefits society. It's a deterrent for further crime, and so we're actually protecting society in using that ultimate punishment. So that's just a quick example of the difference in using individual rights versus society's rights. Fourth category, values. People left of center or liberal may think that it's appropriate and right to have changing or fluid values, that values change over time, over decades, and so as a result, society should reflect that. People right of center have a more stringent view towards values, that values are they stay the same, and whether it's this decade or decades prior, that we have some basic fundamental values that shouldn't be compromised. So that's generally how values go. And our last category, and this is the toughest, we'll talk a lot about this in class, is foreign policy. This is not a great category. I'm not completely happy with this generalization, but at least it's a good starting point. People left of center generally think that in terms of foreign policy, you should intervene militarily as a last resort. So it for sure positively would be the last, the last possible solution to a problem. People left of center would be less likely to intervene militarily, and perhaps more likely to take a look at diplomatic solutions. So look for diplomacy, talking it out, as opposed to using the military. And generally speaking, people right of center or conservative may be more apt to intervene militarily, think that diplomacy hasn't worked in the past, we've perhaps tried it in this particular issue, and now we have to look to a serious reaction, which is to intervene militarily. So that's kind of where we're starting in this unit, to figure out what the difference is between liberal and conservative. That gives us a starting point, and now in class we're going to take a look at specific issues and see if we can use our 5 basic categories to come to a better understanding of what it means to be liberal or what it means to be conservative.